This information you are about to hear and perhaps view, these are not necessarily the thoughts or the ideas of Gary C.Clement or the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the parties this story is about or was interviewed for. Parts of this content may not be owned by or the property of the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, G2 Network Media, or any other company we are affiliated with, and this information is strictly the opinion of those being interviewed. This content is for information purposes only, and although we may make reference to various news stories, we share our own independent beliefs about the content and provide our own opinions. Please enjoy the information. Hi, this is Gary C. Clement, and welcome to the Gary Clement Radio Show and Podcast. Today we are very excited because we have a young lady whom I met on LinkedIn. She's an entrepreneur. She wears many hats, including being an author, a poet, an activist, a real estate agent, and the original creator of the Disney ABC television writing program's annual mixer event. So please, let's welcome Miss Marjorie Frazer. So first of all, just tell us about who you are exactly, please.
Well, I'm from Hannibal, Missouri, a small town on the Mississippi River, known as Mark Twain land. We have a lot of Mark Twain, museums and things like that based on his books and stories. That's where he grew up, but it's also where I grew up. And, it's kind of a southern town on the, on kind of the southern border. And, it was an interesting way of growing up, and anyway, that I wrote a story about that, but it talks about our family history, and it's like the family history of a Black American family, and that book is on Amazon. But but I grew up as a poet and a writer. I always had a passion for that, and I had a love for animation and the entertainment industry. My mother was a professional baker and songwriter and things like that. And she influenced me a lot. But she had written a children's song called The Cookie Girl, and we all grew up with that. All of our neighborhood friends that would come over and buy her pies and pastries and everything. Everyone knew the song The Cookie Girl. And I had this drive to go to Hollywood and to write an animated movie. And so I was driven, as an adult to go out there and pursue that. I landed in the administrative side, and I've worked for major companies such as Disney, Warner Brothers, NBC, Turner Network. For Disney, I had a very interesting entrance into that because I came in as a temp, but even as a temp, I was conducting presentations to executives and things because I was just, I just had a lot of talents in different things. And they were so excited about me in Disney Human Resources that they immediately offered me a permanent job. I had 2 supervisors in HR, and they wanted me so badly. They said, just come with us. They knew I wanted animation. I always wanted to get into the movies or animation. They said, just work with us for 9 months and we'll send you wherever you want to go. Well, the 9 months turned into 12 months and, and all of that. And the work was, instead of the creative types of things, I was getting more manual things. And also I was a coordinator. I was not an administrative assistant. I had been an executive assistant and administrative assistant before, but for them I was a coordinator, which meant that I had my own projects. And I was the only one on the floor, the only coordinator on the floor that had 2 bosses. Everybody else had 1 boss. So there would be times where the 2 bosses would have meetings and they both would expect me to be in their meeting, So I was like pulled apart like a wishbone, in general. And, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of positive, exciting things about that. But because I came in a certain way, I probably should have come in at a higher level. from my background and my degree and all of that. But I was just so excited to work in the entertainment industry that I kind of played things down and I was pulled in at a lower level. And so, I was kind of trapped there because they told me they would put me in a creative environment and they didn't. And then my work became more tedious and mundane. And one of my bosses was on the diversity side, where we did a lot of things for, to enhance diversity, and I'd write articles for the Disney Company magazine and things like that. The other one was administrative, where I was involved in training and the computer purchasing and things like that. And so that boss had kind of pulled me to a point, extended me to a point that I felt I was very overworked. And so so as I said, I was the only one working for two bosses, and that was stress enough in itself. And so there was at one point, and I was always trying to cooperate and all of that. I mean, I have great reviews and things, but it got to a point where I felt like I was just not being respected, and I spoke out. She wanted me to do something extra. And I told her, I said, I have all of these other things on my desk. And she just kind of went berserk, in general. And so that led to kind of a, I don't know what you call it. It led to really her kind of attacking me in all kinds of different ways, subtle ways. And it finally got to the point where they were pressuring me out of that department. They said, oh, well, you could get a job in another department. And of course, you're applying and nobody's receiving you. And during that same time, I was involved in the writers program with the other boss. We had these new potential writers that were in a one-year program. And it had been going on for a few years when I got there. The only thing, though, they didn't have an event to culminate that. And my boss on the diversity side, and these were both white women, an African American, and so, but she knew my talents and she knew my innovation. She was kind of tapped into how innovative and creative I could be, and so they were trying to get this big event to culminate the writers program, and she comes to my desk and says, Marjorie, the ABC team, they've been working on this for 4 months, and we're going to have the event in 2 weeks. Can you do something? That was basically the crux of her conversation. Can you do something? And I said, I'll check it out. She dropped it in my lap 2 weeks before the event. A whole team of people on ABC, like, I don't know, 4 to 6 people for 4 months worked on this, trying to come up with some type of spectacular event. They could not do it. So she gave it to me. I had 2 weeks. I'm starting to get a little emotional now because I remember it like yesterday. But I basically slept at my desk for 2 weeks, coming up with something and playing around with different ideas. And, she would check on me, how are things going, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I just had a eureka moment. I was good at Excel and things like that. I was even teaching things and providing all types of templates to the department with Excel. So I was comfortable with Excel. I had taught it independently too. So anyway, I was playing around and I came up with, at that time, because this was around like 2006, at that time, the speed dating thing had just kind of, come into, play and, was popular. And even though I thought of different concepts, I finally came to that. I said, because what they were trying to do at the end of the event, they were trying to get our writing candidates connected to the directors and producers. And I thought of the speed dating thing. I said, well, if we could set it up like a speed dating thing, where you would have tables set out where the writers would move around to the directors and producers and all that, and that way they can interact. And so that's basically what I set up on an Excel spreadsheet, had the names of everyone and had all of it coordinated, and was able to give it to my supervisor so she could share it with ABC, and everybody was excited about it, and we prepared for the event. I attended the event, and it was just a blast. And afterwards, she came to me after it was over. She said, the top brass loved it. It was a hit. I mean, that's, I keep remember that, like the top brass loved it. It was a hit. And I'm like, oh, great. So, so the company loved it and, and I'm going to hear something about it later or get some type of acknowledgement or reward or whatever. And it just fizzled out. I never heard anything about it. And then I was like, there was no other position that was that had an opening for me. So I ended up leaving the company, and that's a whole nother story. It was not voluntary, although they say it is. But anyway, but so for years I wondered about that, and then I just happened to notice that it had become an annual event. And then all the other companies like Warner Brothers and everybody else was copying this event that I created. Wow. And so I kind of let it go because it's like, sometimes you want to just let things go and move on so it doesn't drag you on. And so, but when George Floyd was murdered and everybody's talking about racial reckoning and things like that, it brought it up to me. It's like, I need to stand up and speak out on this, And so I wrote a letter, and I'll never forget the day George Floyd died, which was May 25th, because my granddaughter, who I raised, her birthday is May 26th. And I wasn't really hearing the news because I was preparing for her birthday. And then, I think the day after, it's 27th, I'm like, oh, that's what's been going on. And, I'm researching and looking and, but it just brought all of that to me that, that I was robbed of my creativity and my recognition, and like how Black people, are treated all the time. Like they create something and somebody else takes credit for it. Mm-hmm. And so I had been looking and seeing that this event had gotten so big, as I said, other entertainment industries were using it, and now it had spread to children's books and all of that, but they were using the concept that I created, that their team could not create in 4 months, and I did in 2 weeks. Wow. And she knew I did it. She knew, she was aware. I mean, and when I told them, it's like, so anyway, so I wrote a letter because I was inspired, or motivated by what happened to George Floyd and just the conscientious thoughts and thinking that, what he was bringing to everyone, his death brought to everyone. And I said, I need to face this. I need to face this and write them a letter of what happened. The same CEO, Bob Iger, was still there, but was getting ready to retire, but he was my CEO. So I wrote a letter to him and all that, and I emailed it. I wasn't even sure if they were going to get it. It was on the weekend. Mm-hmm. I think Monday morning, I get this email from ABC television saying that, they want to talk to me as soon as possible, and everyone, he's like, everybody in the top of the company knows what's going on with you, and we want to talk to you, interview you immediately. And so within a couple of days, I was on the phone with him, and and explaining to him what happened, and also that just going into details about how I created this, how I was given this. And I created it, and I was told how great it was, and that's all I heard. And then, then he asked me, well, what do you want? What do you think you deserve for this? And, and I calculated everything. I took a day off, and I calculated, opportunities missed, the time that elapsed, and that had elapsed, and everything else. Mm-hmm. And I came back with him with what my demand was, and guess what he said? He said, that sounds fair. Wow. He said, that sounds fair. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he says, let me talk to, let me talk to, the people that be and all this, because I don't make the decisions and all that. We'll get back with you. What ended up happening is, he talked to my ex-supervisors, and I had called her before to let her know that they were going to be calling her. Mm-hmm. And, she was kind of a little, kind of not, nice, not straightforward, she's kind of like, skeptical a little bit, but she and I know exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, I'll talk to them. But when I got the result of them talking to her, she said, she had told them that we did it as a team.
Ah.
And so, and the other lady really didn't have anything to do with that part of it. So, because it was in, but she said we did it as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they bought is that, well, Marjorie, she claims that you all did it as a team. And I'm thinking the only way we did it as a team was she laid it on my lap and left it with me and I created it. So if
Right.
you want to call that teamwork, because I was on her team, but I said, and so, but, of course, using their lawyers, and that's how I lost out before. I didn't have attorneys or
Mm-hmm.
anything, and I'm just a peon under, I mean, I call myself the real Black Cinderella, the real life Black Cinderella of the Walt Disney Company, because
Mm.
there I was at my desk slaving,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, not just it wasn't just for that event, for the other things. Like the other boss was having me run around and do stuff for other coworkers when we were supposed to be equals, and stuff. And so with this thing, I mean, it was my blood, sweat, and tears that I created this thing. And I was the only one. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, and this is what I was repeating. I said, check my overtime hours.
Mm-hmm.
See if anybody else had overtime at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, also check my email communications with my boss.
Mm-hmm.
That's two simple things that they could do. And
Right.
so that's what I was saying now. I said, you want proof? I said, don't rely on somebody's word. I said, there is facts and evidence right there. And I said, I will never let this go. I said, I will keep the hold this forever because I want justice for this and I want credit for this and I will not have this stolen as so many other things are stolen. So,
Right. Right. Wow. It's, what a story. Wow. Okay. Let's kind of digress a little bit and just have you tell me
okay.
about your other books. You're an author, so tell me about the other books that you've actually authored in the past, please.
Well, one was about, our family history in Hannibal. I wanted to tell the story of, Blacks in Hannibal. They're a minority and a predominantly white town, but, we grew up there. And, and I just wanted to tell the history of our family. My grandfather was like the head cook of Mark Twain Hotel. It was a historic hotel that's now turned into, I think, a senior living building or something, apartment group. But and it really parallels our family with the town's history, our family history with the town's history and the country's history, from, you know, uh, back in, I guess, the brunt of it started like when my uncles and things went to service and stuff and all the things that they dealt with racism and, and it brought it to present day. And then I also was able to dig back into like the mid or late 1800s of my grandmother's heritage. And, but it was just, it's really kind of a modern day history book. And just trying to pull it here. It was a modern day history book that just reflected the times, but it was unique because of my, love for poetry. It had poetry in it. It had contemporary affairs because a lot of times when you get a history book that you're not really connected with it, you can't really feel or be connected with the time zone that you're in. So what I would do was pull out different contemporary affairs about what was going on in the government, what was going on in entertainment, what was going on in sports. And so that way it would be a constant connection of this is the time zone that we're in. So
I
um,
see. I see.
I'm trying to pull that. So that was the one, and I have to pull up the name. It was like,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and then the other one was and they're both on Amazon.
Okay.
The other one was uh, My Fellow Americans, I Am an Angry, Tired Black Woman. So again, that was in the time that after George Floyd and all the other things, the racial unrest and also the 2020 election with all the fraud and everything that was going on before the election. So my goal was to write that before the election.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really pushing myself and, and I basically had the draft done before the election, but that was very important to me.
I
So,
see. Okay. Okay. So, and actually, as we were talking earlier, you told me about some of your other activism work or whatnot. I
Yes.
guess, in your area too. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Right. Well, I was friends with Alvin Sykes, who is the local civil rights legend who passed away a couple of years ago. And, we became close and, we had plans to share our lives together. But he died suddenly. He had some medical issues. I mean, it was just, um, yeah, it was just some medical issues and an accident. He had a fall that, just kind of degraded his health. But he was the author of the Emmett Till bills, Emmett and Mamie Till, the bills with Congress. He was the president of the Emmett Till Justice Campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And in his hospital bed, I mean, I, had kind of, I didn't know what happened to him because I was the last one of the last ones he spoke to before he got on this train to go visit Emmett Till's cousin for his birthday. But after that, I didn't hear from him for it was like, I don't know, several weeks. And that was when he had fallen and was hospitalized. And then when I found him at the hospital, his daughter told me what hospital he was in. I had visited him, and then a couple of times. Then the second time I visited him, he had his foot amputated, and I wanted to visit him immediately. And I was just, I don't know. I just had a heavy heart, but I was trying to hide my expressions from him so I could go in and be positive when I saw him, and I was just prepared to just be positive and as a writer, I was gonna do you want to write a letter to someone or whatever? Because I thought he was on his deathbed then. That was in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I would see him and he'd be on his deathbed because they said he had his foot amputated, and I knew he had a permanent spine injury. And so I just went down there to to support him and to and just just show him love, and also to be there to write whatever he wanted me to write. So when I got there, I was so surprised because I wasn't really real connected into his political life at the time, although he had shared things with me. I had come back in 2016 from California. And so from that point, he and I had tried to help facilitate his business and things. And his messages about what he was doing about his civil rights and things. And so anyway, but when I came down to see him, and I thought he'd be very depressed and I came down and said, well, Alvin, I have my paperwork, my pen. I said, do you want to write a letter to someone? And he said, first of all, he was upbeat, and he has a very powerful voice. His mind and everything was still strong. And he was saying, yeah, I need to take care of a bill. So you're seeing somebody in the hospital laid up, and they're talking about taking care of a bill. You're usually thinking about an electric bill or a gas bill or something, right?
Right.
He's talking about legislative bills.
Wow.
So I'm here in his deathbed. He wants me to follow up on legislative bills, talk to his local congressman that he's connected with. And so that was the first thing went through me. And then it was all about taking care of business. So in his deathbed, in his hospital bed,
mm-hmm.
It wasn't his deathbed yet, but I was nervous because he had a permanent spinal injury. He just had his foot amputated, and he's talking about legislation. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so from that point on, he's like, Marjorie, will you help me, write this bill, or help me to write this request? And so he was dealing with one of his congressmen on multiple bills. And so he wanted me to connect with him to make sure he knew where he was and take notes and all of that. But he also, because of his involvement with Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley, he was the president of the Emmett Till Justice Campaign. So he worked closely with Mamie Till before she died. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to write a letter to Congress to request a Congressional Gold Medal posthumously for both of them. And so he had drafted it, I guess, 5 years prior with a previous assistant, and had started drafting it, but he had never finished it. And so we sat down at his hospital bed. Then COVID came, and so I'd have to do it online from home and talk to him. And so we finished it, and he had me send it to all the congressmen and all of that. And then just recently, this past December 2022, it was passed.
Wow.
And after his death.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so that was really a big deal. It's all in the news, and, it's government history, Black history, and, the Till family was happy to have that. And so, yeah, so that was that part of it.
Wow. And
And
so,
then once go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and so you were the person that actually wrote that bill or whatnot for him to submit, basically.
I was his hands. I was his hands. He was paralyzed. He couldn't write. So I wrote it. He was the voice and I was the
Wow.
hands and the eyes that wrote it for him.
Oh my goodness,
Yep.
that's beautiful. Wow. So now, when it comes to being an Afro American woman and dealing, if it's politics or if it's this Disney situation and entertainment, or just in general, like I said,
Yeah.
most of the time, women have to take the heavy burden, if they have children or if they have a family or
Right.
whatever. So in all of this, when do you kind of just pull back and try to just digest some of this, and I know
Yeah.
that you feel like you deserve more than whatever you're currently getting. How do you
Right.
deal with this?
Well, like you said, then you have other responsibilities. I mean, I have two adult sons. I raised and am raising two of my grandchildren. So that had to be my focus. And then, but I learned to uh, carve out time for myself because I needed to have my own expression and things. And so one of them was my writing and the other activities I was interested in. Um, and I just try to, find the positive things. You know, uh, I'm a believer in Christ, and I trust in the Lord. I just, I had to pray about a lot of things for strength, and go to prayer for strength. Um, but you still have to live your life. I mean, I still have like the regular daily duties of taking care of two children, school age kids,
Hmm.
and everything else. But I had always said that I'm not going to say that I can't do things because I have these other responsibilities. I mean, I still have to find ways to express my talents and to reach out. So,
Hmm.
but every once in a while, something would come up.
Right.
I said, I'm not going to let this be a burden on me or wear me down. I said, but I will never let go of it. And if the opportunity comes, I will speak up. And so Disney was posting Women's History Month and how they were supporting women. And I'm like, what? I
Hmm.
said, oh, I got to respond to this. So
Hmm.
that's kind of how it pops up. It's like, it's not an everyday thing, but if they bring something up where it just makes me reflect on what they did to me, I will definitely speak up. And I mean, I even had that same ABC TV executive. We had some communication. I don't know if it was email. It probably was email. I'm pretty sure it wasn't by phone. But just recently, in the last couple of months, he's like, I hope it works out for you. I mean, obviously he can't say
Hmm.
anything because they had attorneys and all that, but he says, I hope it works out. So,
Hmm.
but as I said, facts will bear it out. I mean, and I mean, I've been bold enough to post Disney logos on my messages or whatever. I don't care at this point. Sue me because I want to see you in court. See,
Right. Right.
they don't
Right.
want me in court. I
Hmm.
want to see you in court so I can get my word out. You know,
Right.
and so it's like, so they don't scare me anymore. They used to scare me, and that's why they, twisted me out of everything, and it's and that's what happens. But I'm like, I am not scared anymore, and I thank George Floyd for his sacrifice, opening a lot of people's eyes up. But it's like, it's like, they're afraid to talk to me. But it's like, if I see anything that rubs me the wrong way or brings that up, I will stomp on it. And I'm like, and I don't care if I'm using your logo. I don't care if I'm doing. Please take me to court so I can talk about stuff. So that's kind of how I feel. So
And so I'm learning, like you said, as an Afro American, when we have injustices, things like this that are done to us, like you said, we can't care anymore. We got to put our foot in it. We have to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
yes.
Well, all right. So, real estate agent, how does that play a part or a role in your life?
Well, again, I guess it's back, you know, because of slavery and and things that we were cut out of. I mean, I've always wanted to be involved in owning real estate. My grandparents owned their house, but my mother never did. She was a single mom, and so many people never did. uh, I didn't. I had tried and attempted, but I'm like, I need to go into real estate. So that was one of the things that drove me. And so when I was in California, I got a real estate license, and I showed all kinds of properties and millionaire mansions and things like that. And then I came back to Missouri with my grandchildren, and I got into real estate again. And then I had stopped shortly before the pandemic, but then I just re-signed with the company because I'm like, I love real estate, and and just for personal reasons, I want to be prepared and just kind of do it at my own schedule, and because I can do it all from home. So, but I love real estate because I just think that's something that is just kind of innate in me, that I want land. I
Mm-hmm.
want ownership. I want to help other people to have ownership because this is something also that we were robbed of, so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. And you mentioned a poem that you wrote, I guess, for sports or whatnot. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
right. Well, there was that historic battle between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like a year or two ago, and it called the 13 seconds,
Okay.
where the Chiefs were losing, but in 13 seconds, Patrick Mahomes only had 13 seconds, and the Chiefs team, and we turned the game around in 13 seconds. So it was like a really historical game, a battle, back-to-back battle between him and Josh Allen, and we won in 13 seconds. So the poem is called 13 Seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a big football fan, and I tend to watch the games and summarize them, and I can write the poetry as a play-by-play poem. And so that's what I did. I went over that, and it's like, I think when you read the poem, you feel like you're reliving the game, you know. And so I shared it with, on Twitter with our local TV station and other people. And they said, well, have you done anything with it? And I said, no, not really. And they were like, well, would you come and read it in front of the stadium and we'll record you? And so we did that. And so now, there's a link on our local television station, Channel 41, uh, where, it has me reading the poem aloud. Yeah. And
Cool.
it's been copied on several sites. So.
Okay.
And I do it. In fact, I'm working on one for the Super Bowl. I was kind of delayed for a couple of reasons, but I definitely will do one because the Chiefs just won their second Super Bowl. So
I see. Okay. So now tell me, will you do a book once this Disney stuff is settled? Will you do a book to commemorate that story?
I probably will. I have a couple of books that in progress, but no, I'm sorry. That one has been in progress, but I've put it aside. But I have been drafting that book all along, so that really is one of the important books that I'm writing.
I see. Oh, okay. Okay. And when
And
you
I'm actually tied with a publisher now that I'm working on getting a couple of books published pretty soon. So,
oh, okay. When you say a publisher, so you're going with a major publishing company at this point, or
well, this is what do you call it? Uh, Not well. I wouldn't say I don't know a major, but
Mhm.
I'm getting the books professionally published.
I
I
understand.
had been doing self-publishing, so I'm now stepping to the level of getting it professionally published.
I see.
So.
Okay. Okay. And for young people that have an opportunity to research you, read some of your books or whatnot from the past, and
Mhm.
basically follow you as you go forward. What do you want young people to draw from your story, from your life?
Well, I think one of the things that I missed out on, with Disney was, you know, being afraid to challenge or afraid to fight the bureaucracy. And, when you know that, you have to act immediately. I let that lie dormant for years. And I wish I had gone to an attorney or gone to someone or just spoke up at that time, and not, because what happens is, they like to just cut you a check and close everything. Uh, and I should never have received that check. It's like, and it wasn't a big check. That was just my standard employment check. They never gave me anything for the creation I made. But just if you have an open case, and since then, now one thing this positive thing this has done has made me focus more on law. In fact, I was almost going to get work on a master's in law uh, because I have uh, been in court multiple times on other things and have been very comfortable in court because of that. Um, one judge said, you need to get your law degree. So I just do, just the pro se self-representing or supporting other people, but that has showed me to fight for your right, fight for your truth and justice. And so and that's one thing that Alvin and I had in common and why I admired him and he admired me. He knew about my personal battles in different courts and things. And I'm not an official attorney, but I certainly learned a lot. And I said, I'll never be taken advantage again the way I was taken advantage at Disney,
Right. Mhm.
so, and, and so, but I would just say to act now, do not sweep it under the rug, find someone that can help you to address things and stand up for what you've done. So,
I see. Okay. So a current future project that you're working on.
pardon me.
A current future project that you're working on right now.
Well, well, again, the Disney project that will continue until this culminates. I am working with Alvin. That there's a book I'm working on about him because there was a conspiracy around his death and his funeral. So I am writing that. And then also, this is another subject. The adult care facilities in an adult care situation, how criminal that it is and manipulative it is, where people that are in these homes and things like that are getting taken advantage of. I have an adult cousin who disappeared from us for at least 25 years.
Mm.
I didn't even know where he was. Nobody claimed to know where he was. So for 25 years, I know most of the family had no idea where he was. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. And I found him by accident about 5 years ago. And, uh, and that is a story within itself, because the public administrator that was over him was the same administrator that was over a gentleman whose body was hidden and stuffed in a storage facility.
Oh my
So
God. Mm.
so that's the type of stuff I was dealing with after I found my cousin. And then I realized why we couldn't find him because he was hidden, because it was a moneymaker.
Mm.
And so that's the other story that I'm working on is just how I found him, got him out, had to fight to get him out and getting close to family again. And he's now close to family where we can see him regularly. But these care facilities, there's a movie, I Care a Lot, that kind of gives you some idea of what goes on in those, facilities and and the system. And but I personally had to battle that and find him and get him out of there. So that's another book that I'm writing.
We really do appreciate our guests who participated in this episode, and we hope you learned something that will bless your day and your life. For all who are interested in learning more about the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, please visit www.amazon.com and order my book, The Gary Clement Radio Show, When Strong Afro-American Men and Women Stand Up. It covers everything about us and features a variety of Afro-American personalities who speak out about the importance of education and literacy in the Black community. Well, we thank you for tuning into our podcast. Please send us your email address so we can contact you when we have new releases and new episodes and new projects as well. You can reach us at gccpresents@yahoo.com. And also, if you're interested in submitting any materials or want to get in touch with us, please do so by simply sending an email to gccpresents@yahoo.com. That's G as in Gary, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, presents@yahoo.com. So until next time, do take care. And this is a G2 Network Media production.